What's up, y'all? You're listening to the My Nation podcast. We're live from Denver. I'm Alex Miller. That's not Robert Cessna. This is Tony Catalina. He covers A&M for the Austin American Statesman. Joining us on the show today. What's up, Tony?
What's going on, Alex? Thanks for having me.
Hey, we made it here in one piece. Shout out to Frontier Airlines. They're not as bad as people say. So let's just hope they get us home too.
Exactly. Yeah.
But until then, we're here covering March Madness. Texas A&M. They're a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're facing 13 seed Yale Thursday evening. It's 5:25 local time, 6:25 for you folks back in the Lone Star State on TBS. Tony, since you're the guest on the show, I'll throw this to you first. What stands out to you about this matchup?
You know, for me, it's the size advantage for A&M, right? When you look at the way they could use Phil Payne and the way that, shout out to Ian from the battalion talking about how they only have one guy that's north of 6'7", and I think that's something. With the way that A&M crashes the boards offensively and as a collective, I think it's something they can do really well, although Yale does that well too. But I think it kind of plays into the hand of just how good A&M is or can be and how they want to play their style of basketball.
Yeah, you mentioned the size advantage that A&M has, which, as we know, one of the key fundamental things that A&M does as part of their winning formula is rebound the basketball, especially on the offensive end. They're going to get a good test, though, in Yale. Yale is a good rebounding team. But like you said, the size advantage, Nick Townsend, he's their leading rebounder at 7.2 a game. But he's like 6'7", So, can guys like Anderson Garcia, Solomon Washington, even Zurich Phelps, who gets a lot of rebounds as a guard, can they control the glass and give A&M opportunities to shoot more balls, which we know they need because at times A&M has played good on offense, but for the most part, they need those second chance opportunities if they're going to win games. On the flip side, to me, the biggest thing is, can A&M slow down Yale's three-point shooting? We've seen it over and over this year where A&M faces a team that has a good shooter, they're good at three-point shooting, and a guy gets hot, and it's a problem for A&M, right? And so, I'm going to butcher his name. I just know it. Nope, I'm going to look at the pronunciation guide. Okay, John Poulikitis, right?
Yes.
That's the name to know.
Yes.
He averages 19 points a game. He's shooting 41% from three, 45% from the field overall. I mean, let's just call it as it is. This guy's a shooter.
Yeah.
He's freaking good.
Yeah, he's efficient. He leads the Ivy League in scoring. He is somebody who they want to get the ball in the hands up early in the shot clock, kind of let him make plays. And like you said, they don't really shoot a ton of three-point shots, but the shots that they select and they go in, right? Like they do well with what they make work here. And I mean, you expect nothing less from an Ivy League school here, right? They're going to be efficient in the way they attack things.
A lot's been made of how Yale beat Auburn last year. They beat Baylor in 2016. They might be a 13 seed. They're no stranger to the upset. But you and I were both in Yale's press conference and in A&M's. Man, what a chip on the shoulder tone from both teams in some ways, right? Yale, they're like, why are you calling us small? Like, why are we such this like big underdog who can't do anything? Is kind of how they perceive some of the questions when they've got some skins on the wall at the NCAA tournament. And then on the flip side, A&M's like, yeah, we've also been the underdog for so much leading up to this point. Like, A&M seems like they're out to prove something.
Yeah, it's, to the first point to Yale, the head coach is speaking about how, we've been here before. This is something we know we can do. We can play with anybody. He's willing and able to put it out on the court and show that they belong with the big boys. Conversely, like you said on the other side, A&M had a tone, and I think you would agree, they had a tone that we hadn't really heard before. They came in focused, a little bit more tight in their answers. It just seems like a team who's ready to go and understands what the opportunity they have in front of them.
Well, Tony, how far do you see A&M going, and what do you think is going to be the key to A&M making a big run if they're going to get one here this season?
It's this time of year, it's always about runs, and it's about finding your stride at the right time. I think A&M does a lot of good things individually. If they can find a way to come together and put some good, like find some better shooting, find to get the ball in Wade's hand, Zerk being a little bit more efficient, I don't think that, them getting to Atlanta in a Sweet 16 is all that crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you look at A&M's path and it's like, okay, they're a 4 seed. They should win this first game, right?
Yeah.
You look at what they could potentially face in Michigan or UC San Diego, and quite frankly, I think A&M has a distinct advantage over both of those teams. Michigan, they're bad at rebounding. They turn the ball over a lot. San Diego, their rotation's really thin. It's really, like, they play like 8 guys. A&M gets to the foul line a lot. If they get those guys in foul trouble and they got to tap into their bench, that could be problematic. The big one, obviously, is the one right in front of them. You got to win the one that's right in front of you. And to A&M's credit, they've reiterated over and over, and it could just be coach speak, but their whole thing is they want to be where their feet are.
Right.
That's what they've preached all season. That's their gospel right now.
And to your point, they've kind of echoed that sentiment, right? Henry Coleman speaking to the media, talking about how we're really the underdog, which nobody really believes. If you listen to Vegas, they're 7.5-point favorites, but they're adopting that mantra of they weren't the highest recruits, they weren't all that coveted, but now they're in a spot where they're playing an Ivy League school, and it's going to be the matchup of 2 teams and who wants them more, who got the more hungry approach to this. And to A&M's credit, I think they're doing all the right things right now.
Well, let's change subjects here for a second, because basketball is not the only thing that A&M fans are necessarily concerned about right now. The A&M baseball team, they got swept by Alabama this weekend. Things were looking a little bleak last night against A&M Corpus before they really turned it on. I was traveling already, but you were at the game.
There.
What was kind of the vibe after the game in a contest that, look, A&M they need runs. They need the offense to figure itself out and find some production. And it seemed like they finally were starting to get some good glimpses of that last night.
Yeah, the way they've had an up and down start, you could tell that they're not taking any offensive production for granted, right? Michael, Coach Early is, he's happy his guys found some barrels with the ball in here, but at the same time, they want to go see it against some conference opponents. Somebody, they want to go to Nashville this week, play Vanderbilt, and kind of bring that with them. It's, go 0-3 in a weekend at home. It's a tough deal. And I think that, speaking for the fan base or looking at the temperature of the fan base, they're going to need to see it before they believe it. And I think it starts this weekend, even regardless of a run-shortened win on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that a game like Tuesday's probably has A&M in a better frame of mind.
Right.
Than even if they had won, but it was just an offensive struggle, right? I think that the way they were able to close the game out definitely boosts the morale, and it's hard to play loose and relaxed when you're losing games, you're pressing, you're trying to figure things out, and if A&M can just get to a point where they can win maybe just 2 conference games in a row,
right,
and just get a little bit of swagger back,
yeah,
right?
100%.
It would potentially just change the complete trajectory of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Coach Early said it. You see the players shaving their heads. They believe that there's got to be some magic mojo here. And whether they lost it or they didn't have it or whatever the case may be, you're right. Baseball's supposed to be fun, and you play your best baseball when you're having a good time. These guys are talented across the board. This is still the same team that was rated number 1 in the preseason. They just need to go out there and put it out there on the field and figure out a way to kind of, like you said, roll and get a game or 2 in conference play.
The big thing I'm looking at this weekend is what's the lineup going to look like, right? They tried putting Blake Bender up in left field last night. He got pulled. He missed a fly ball. Didn't do a whole lot at the plate. At second base, Sawyer Farr made another error, and they replaced him. Did Royo go to third, or did he go to second?
He went to second.
He went to second.
Yeah.
And so Hensler stayed at third.
And then Yamal ended up going to second.
Okay.
So they made a few moves, yeah.
So Royo went to third, Yamal went to second.
Yep.
And, Yamal was in a situation where he got replaced by Sam Erickson on Sunday. So, it's been a little bit of a musical chairs act for A&M because they've got a hole or 2 in the field, and they're trying to figure it out at the plate. And can you put a guy that's not really a left fielder in left field? Can he be serviceable in the outfield because he's got some pop in his bat? Does Royo, a freshman, is he, because they've been playing quite a few freshmen, is he one of the guys that can rise to the occasion like a player like Terrence Keele, who
Right.
has just continued to just be lights out.
Yep.
If there was one silver lining of Caden Sorrell being injured, it is that Terrence Keele has been unleashed.
Superstar in the making.
And he's probably not going to look back. He looks just so good all around.
Absolutely. And to your point, Terrence Keele is a guy we've spoken in the preseason. We saw him in the inter squad scrimmages. Like, he's a guy who never blinked in the moment, right? It was never too big for him. And to him, to the point we said earlier, it's just baseball. And he's out there and he's having fun, and you can see he's playing well and it's translating. This team as a whole, right? You're talking about moving pieces and different things. The only thing that seems to be absolutely clicking right now is the weekend starters. The bullpen struggling, offense is inconsistent. If they can just find a way, and you can see the way early he's moving the lineup around, he's trying to find that perfect mesh. And, it's going to, I think eventually they're too talented to be held down for so long, but right now it is still a bit of a struggle.
Well, and the saving grace that A&M has right now, to your point, is the starting pitching. If you have good, quality starting pitching, you're going to give yourself a chance to win a baseball game at any level.
Right.
And especially in the college level where starting pitching is at a premium, and A&M is going to face some really potent offenses. Tennessee, Texas has come out hot, right? They're going to play LSU and Arkansas. They're going to play Vanderbilt this weekend, right? They've already played a really good offensive team in Alabama.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, A&M starting pitching did pretty dang good against those guys.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it'd be Miles Patton, who could be anybody's Saturday starter, right? For him to be on Sunday is such a weapon for A&M. Prager is just a pro's pro, and Justin Lampkin just the quietest 200 Ks. The guy is just super efficient. Now, can you get the bullpen? Can you pull the right levers in the late innings to try to help them out, or do you make them have to extend themselves to go 7, 8 innings? So Coach Early, first-year head coach, trying to figure out how to use all this talent and put the right pieces together. But the talent and the recipe's there, they just got to cook it.
Well, let's talk just a little bit of football, because spring football does start, and we were kind of in a scramble this morning getting here to Denver, so we weren't there, got to listen to Mike Elko, but a couple of noteworthy things. A lot of people were interested what the status of Micah Hudson was. He's no longer with the team. He's not even enrolled in school right now.
Yeah.
So there had been a lot of speculation about that. So to get kind of a definitive answer, I think, was kind of a good thing. You don't really know exactly the particulars of that whole situation, but I think that was something people were interested to hear about definitively from Elko.
Yeah, for sure. Like, obviously, when you look at it on the field, 5-star talent, a guy who could have came in to help your football program, you feel bad, you mourn the loss of that player, right? You don't know what the particulars of that situation is, but you move on, right? For A&M, you brought in Casey Conception, Mario Craver, Terry Bussey's getting a full-time wide receiver role now. There is talent there. So if you're an A&M fan saying like, oh, we lost Hudson, what's that mean for the production? I still think a run-first team with the Marcel Reed taking a year 2 leap and these new pieces, I think that they should be okay.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what kind of leap Terry Bussey can take, because it seemed like last year you could see the potential, but it just didn't seem like things were clicking 100% when they tried to get him the ball or get him in the game, which, look, the guy's a true freshman. And, oh, by the way, he was going from 2A to the SEC.
Right.
That's a big jump.
Huge.
And so I think a lot of times when you get a big 5-star freshman in that has the skill set that guy has, you just expect instant greatness.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it can be a process, right? And so Elko seems very optimistic, especially now that he's in that full-time role and can go through spring drills and be on offense through the offseason, what kind of ceiling this guy has.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something to watch out for. I think the big thing, the position group to watch how it unfolds a little bit this spring is going to be defensive line. What's really just fascinating, Tony, is at this time last year, defensive line was like no questions asked. It seems like a strength. They got NFL talent across the board. And offensive line, oh boy, what are they going to do there?
Yeah.
And now I don't think defensive line is as dire as people thought of the offensive line last year, but O-line is definitely in a good spot.
Right.
And they've got a lot of new pieces. on the defensive line, what's that rebuild going to look like? Who steps up and emerges?
Yeah, absolutely right. I think looking at TJ Searcy from Florida, and you have obviously Tyler Onyeadum from Iowa State in the interior, it's going to be a question because I don't think you disagree with this. It's Cassius Howell's room at this point, right? He's a guy who's going to be a pass rush extraordinaire for A&M. He showed flashes of it last season and a culmination of it at the Las Vegas Bowl. But where do they find the right pieces, right? Some guys are going to have to step up, whether, you got to find some interior help because the pass rush was okay last year. Where the problem was is stopping the run in the middle, right? Trying to get strong in the middle and make plays in the middle is where it's going to be something that's going to watch. But you're right, offensive line full of talent, full of production, full of guys who are veterans. Quite the 180 from last season.
Yeah, and they bring a guy back in Albert Regis who everybody loves him in that program.
Yeah.
They testify to his hard work. He's a guy that waited his turn to get an opportunity, but they've got to find somebody next to him that can step up and really solidify the interior line. If we know anything about SEC football, it's one in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
And Elko for sure knows that. And so I know that he knows that that's one of the top priorities of this offseason is making sure they get that lockdown.
Yeah, beyond what they've already done and tried to do, right, they tried to get some pieces to come in here and they've added some pieces. I wouldn't be surprised to see the spring portal, them try to go ahead and attack that position as well because it's just that important. It's such an unglamorous spot where you're probably not getting the tackles, you're probably taking on double teams, but your effective ability to be efficient in the middle there can make or break your entire front seven.
Well, we got stories to write, but thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Miami Nation podcast. Be sure to follow Tony on Twitter. Thanks for joining the show this week, Tony.
I appreciate you having me, man. Anytime.
Well, hey, and be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage here from Denver. And Cease is back home bringing you spring football content. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Miami Nation podcast.